my dear beloved brothers and sisters. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, this is Matthew, Mr. Hope Richerzhagen with Phenomenal Marriage. And today I want to talk about our baseline emotional state. It's not so much in our relationships what we know to do, it's what we actually do. And the reason we do that is because of how I feel about my spouse, my baseline emotional state. And this is so important because the foundation of a great marriage, every single great marriage has this thing in common. There's three things that every happily married couple have in common. The first one is goodwill. They like their spouse and they're committed to meeting their needs. This having goodwill towards your spouse is a positive baseline emotional state. And people, there's so much information on marriage and marriage tricks and marriage tips and all these things. At the end of the day, what really matters, what makes the difference, is if you like your spouse. That's what this is all about. If you like your spouse and you're committed to meeting their needs, you're going to turn their heart towards you just as sure as the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, just as sure as a sunflower follows the sun. Your spouse is going to turn towards you. I want to tell you this story that Zig Ziglar told about a traveling salesman. He was the original road warrior back in the day, and he'd been out working all week. He was gone all week, and he comes home, and he has all of his luggage in his arms, and he runs up to the door, and he kicks the door. Bang, 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 bang. And he's got his arms full, and his wife's like, oh my goodness. She comes and opens the door, and he walks in the house really fast. He drops all of his luggage, and he says, well, honey, this week while I was gone, I went to a seminar and I learned some things about how I'm not getting the treatment that I need to get here at this home. I'm not getting the respect I need, and there's going to be some changes. And don't you know, that sweet, dear little wife of his, she said, actually, you're right. There have been some things I've been meaning to talk to you about. And there are going to be some changes because I'm sick and tired of doing all your work, buddy. I'm sick and tired of you being gone all the time. And don't you know that they had sweet fellowship all weekend? No. How about if we rewind the story? How about if we go back to the doorway? How about if we go back out the door? And here's that same salesman. And he shows up and his luggage is in his arms. And he sets the luggage down and he knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And his wife comes and opens the door. And he says to her, he says, you know, sugar baby, while I was gone this week, I went to a seminar. And I learned some things. I learned that I haven't been loving you like I should. Like I've been a little bit selfish here and there. Babe, there's going to be some changes. I want to be the man that you need me to be. And don't you know that sweet little wife of his? She climbed into his arms and they kissed and embraced. And she says, you know what, you big stud? Honestly, I've been thinking. I haven't been prioritizing you like I should. I've been focusing more on the kids and more on the projects. I'm sorry, babe. Let's talk. Let's work together to make this marriage amazing, just like God intended it. And let me tell you, they had some sweet and hot fellowship in bed that weekend. That story shows the power of our state, our baseline emotional state. When we show up and we're positive and we're loving and we're accepting, no judgment, only love, it turns our spouse. They want to be with us. They want to help us. When we show up and we tell them, you're doing it wrong. That's not right. That's not good enough. You know what? It just drives them away. So I encourage you, on this page, there are links for you to sign up and get my free marriage blueprint. Everything in this is biblical, it's practical, it's proven, it's powerful. And you know what? It makes marriage fun. Everybody's afraid. They're just like, oh, I don't want to know what God knows. You know what? He designed marriage. He invented it. Guys, he invented women. That's pretty awesome, huh? He designed marriage. He designed marriage to be glorious. The only reason our marriages aren't glorious is because we're not doing what he asked us to do. And his commandments aren't grievous. When we obey, we get the blessing. So I encourage you to go ahead and download that blueprint. Go ahead and opt into the emails. Go ahead and follow along. Go ahead and start investing in your spouse. You may say to yourself, you know what? But my spouse isn't doing their part. And I just want to tell you another story here really quick. It's like there's two people in this rowboat, Bob and Betty, and Bob's rowing and Betty's bailing. And Betty keeps stopping to look at Bob. And she says, Bob, you're not rowing. You're not rowing right. And Bob, he quits rowing and he looks at his wife, Betty, and he says, Betty, you're not bailing right. And both of them stop to correct each other. And you know what? They both drowned. You know why? Because Bob was more concerned about what Betty wasn't doing than doing what Bob was supposed to do. And Betty drowned because she was more concerned about what Bob wasn't doing than what she was supposed to do. And this is what I'm going to tell you. This is straight out of Matthew chapter 7. Do your work first. Betty, she needs to bail and bail and bail. While she's bailing and she's doing it, then she can look over at Bob and say, you know what, Bob, I don't know if we're going in the right direction. I don't know, maybe you need to put your hands further out on the oars or something. I don't know. And make a suggestion instead of telling him what to do. And Bob, what he needs to do is he needs to pull toward shore. And while he's pulling toward shore, he's already going. Then he can say, hey, Betty, could you grab that bucket and throw some of that water overboard? There's quite a bit of, there's another wave. Oh, come on, quick, Betty. Bail, bail. Because what happens, it says, judge yourself first. Judge the beam that's in your own eye so you can see clearly, to see the mote, the speck, that little teeny bit that's in your brother's or sister's eye. What happens is while you're looking at your spouse, they're looking at you. And if you're not doing your part, they can tell. What you do is you do your part first. Bob, he rows and he says, hey, Betty, help me out, grab that bail bucket. And she says, you bet, dear, I'd love to help you. And she goes and she starts bailing. Or Betty goes and she starts bailing and she's bailing and she says, hey, Bob, can you pull harder towards the shore? Look, I think the shore is more over that way. Okay, you bet, Betty. That's how marriage works. Nothing works if you don't work. But when you work, when you apply these principles, Jim Rohn used to say, nothing changes until you change, but when you change, everything changes. You're just a few simple shifts away from moving your spouse to want to love and serve you. Opt in, join, and get to work on building your marriage. It's not just for you, it's for your spouse, it's for your children, it's for your whole family, it's for your community, it's for the world. God bless.